Hi, everybody. Great lineup today as usual. And we got to get rolling because there's going to be a lot of talk. So I had first met Lindsay there about a couple months ago at a friend's house, and then I've run into her a couple times since then. We must travel in the same circles, but I'd like to introduce Lindsay Dare.
Hello, I'm Lindsay. I've never been to one of these before, so I'm not 100% sure what I'm supposed to do now. I will talk about myself and introduce myself. Is that fine? Sorry, Lacey. My name is Lindsay Dare. Some of you might know my little sister, Abby Dare. She owns and runs the Meadows, which is right between Dee's Bar and the Brandenburg Gallery. If you haven't been there yet, you're missing out, and you should go check it out and spend money. She was an Outward Bound person for about 12 years. And so me and the rest of my family came up to visit her for 12 years and got to know Ely and fell in love with the place. And I had a corporate job. I had to drive on 494 every day and was living in a crappy apartment in St. Paul last year and thought that was stupid. So I quit and came up here. And now I live in Ely. And Abby's, oh, thank you. And Abby's amazing community of friends treated me like I've been here for 20 years. So I appreciate that. Lacey, you're one of them. Thank you. I am a personal trainer at Functional Fitness. What's up, Autumn? And I also started a travel agency. So if any of you guys are trying to go on an Alaskan cruise, just holler at your girl and I can hook you up. And I am also heavily working with the film festival this year. I just buzzed in super quick from the theater and actually have to buzz right out and get back there. I hate to rain on your parade, but both showings of Boundary Waters are sold out as of right now. But we are going to show it again this summer, and there is enough aggressive love for the film that I wouldn't be surprised if we show it a bunch more times because so many people want to see it. But we are doing a rush line. I don't know, I'm doing like a film festival promo right now. We're doing a rush line. So if some people don't pick up their tickets, you can come early. And if people don't pick up their tickets, we will release them. So come early and get your name on the list if you feel really passionate about that. But either way, come on by the theater. It's a super cool experience. Volunteering at the film festival was the first thing that I did last year when I moved here. I got an email from Abby's friend, Lacey, that said, hey, come volunteer. And Abby said, hey, do this. And now I have keys to the building. So somehow that escalated quickly. And I'm really glad I live here. I think that this town is pretty special. You guys seem to like each other a lot. And thank you for welcoming me like you've known me forever, because this is a pretty nice place to live. So thanks for creating a community. I know it takes a lot of work to create that culture and to keep it that way. So thanks to you all for being cool like that. I have some business cards for my travel agency. It's called Double Team Travel. I normally work with sports teams, but I can help anybody. So doubleteamtravel.com is my website. My name is Lindsay Dare. I'm on Facebook. And I'm down at the gym in the community hub, and you can find me on the what's called Functional Fitness website. Or just go to the Meadows and ask Abby for me now. Sound good? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Yep.
All right, the next presenter, I found out through the grapevine that she bought a business in town. So I took it upon myself to climb some dangerous stairs and bang on her door. And that's how I met Ely, who now owns the Superwash Laundromat in Ely.
Good morning, good afternoon. It's the Ely Speed Wash.
Speed Wash.
I'm Ely. I am a retired ER nurse from Minneapolis. I got to retire early because of the Speed Wash. I had no intention of moving up here. I loved it up here. I'd come up here every summer for a couple of weeks. And I always look at little houses for sale, because when I was planning to retire at 65 or 66, I thought this would be a perfect place to be. I want walkable, I want friendly people, I want do-it-yourselfers. I like to fish, camp, train my son to enjoy the same things. And I was having lunch at Insula's and didn't see any houses that I thought I would buy. And I saw the ad for the speed wash. Went home and could not stop thinking about it. I talked to Edie, who owns the Motel Ely, about it, and she said, just do it. Just do it. And I was at work and I kept talking about it and talking about it. And finally, my secretary looked at me and she said, Carolee, all you do is talk. And that was that little push. Like, you're right, all I do is talk. So I put my house on the market, was able to sell my house in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and bought the Ely Speed Wash, and I'm so happy to have hit the reset button on my life. I see some familiar faces because I have been kind of wandering around. There's a few more groups I think I'd like to check out, possibly join or participate in. Well, right now, yeah, but right now it's basically getting caught up on Netflix. And cleaning, because I moved into the apartment that's above the speed wash. A fine young man lived there, but like I said, he was a fine young man. Still not ready to sit in the tub, but I can shower.
Question? You nice to meet you.
Thank you.
That's my favorite laundromat. All right, next up is Gillian Fitzgerald. Gillian Fitzgerald. And a lot of you may already know her, but we don't know the backstory, right? The whole back.
Hello, everybody. Some of you have heard me say I hate speaking about myself publicly, but I said I'm done doing that, so I'm done saying that. All right, well, I might hate speaking, but I do love writing. So give me a moment to find the one I'm looking for. I'll start you all with something I wrote about Ely once upon a time. Sorry, I didn't know I was next. Okay. It's April. You're right. So true. Okay, I wrote this on May 4th in 2023. Yesterday, about halfway between Duluth and Virginia, the trees on the horizon started to change, and I felt something come back to life in me, something I could recognize was gone, but couldn't quite put my finger on before it came back. It was a feeling of certainty that came back to me, certainty of who I am and of being in the place I should be. I feel roots here now, seeds that I've planted that have grown. The snow has mostly melted, and so have the sorrows I carried when I left here this winter. Who I am, the happiness I feel, it isn't fleeting. It's here, it is reality, and it is the life I've made for myself. The life I want, the life I choose over and over and over again. It's here, my heart is here. So, I tried writing notes of where to start, and it's a little disorganized. So let's start at the beginning. I recently learned the story from my mother, who told me that as a kid, and I wasn't exactly the best kid, and when I would get sent to timeout, she realized I was actually really happy about that because that means I could sit in my room and read all day without anyone bothering me. So instead, what she had to do was take my books away from me. And then she said she felt really guilty about that because she should be excited that a kid wanted to read, but if my punishment was actually my secret heaven, something had to change. So that's kind of reign true throughout my entire life. Nothing makes me happier than being at home with a book and a cat and a cup of tea. So I also tried to think of things that I could talk about that you can't find by Googling my name. So I decided to talk about yoga and how yoga became a big part of my life. So to take a few steps back, I grew up in the state of Virginia, and I do have to clarify here so people don't think I'm a local and know what they talk about when they're like, oh, no, that's not me. I don't get it. So I grew up in the state of Virginia, and I grew up in Hampton Roads, like the military area, Tidewater region. And at some point I moved to Richmond, and I love Richmond. I love Hampton Roads too, but when I moved to Richmond, I first got there because of school. And I was enrolled in this one credit elective that I didn't want to take for whatever reason. And I didn't know what to do because I was 18 and a freshman and didn't know how to do anything. So I looked at my friend and was like, I don't want to take this class. And she said, okay, just give me your laptop. Like, I'll drop it for you and find another class. And I ended up taking a yoga class. It was once a week for one credit elective. And I had never really been a yoga doer before. Like, I thought stretching was cool as an athlete. But that class just really changed my life because it forced me to do it once a week. And then after that, the habit just really stuck. Through Richmond, I made a lot of cool friends. And it also got me involved in the outdoor leadership aspect of my life, which is how I ended up here. But yeah, it just got me outside in an urban environment in ways that I didn't know possible. Like, there was whitewater, there are mountain biking trails, there's a river with rocks you can lay on and read, which I loved. And there's just so much to do. And it also got me involved in the EDM scene. I always thought electronic music kind of sounded like blenders until I really started listening to it. And I just really fell in love with that community and how everyone is so welcoming and nice and loves to dance. And it's just so much fun. So through that outdoor program I worked for in college, I met someone who worked up here. He was a lifelong Boy Scout. And in an area with a lot of whitewater, there weren't that many people that liked canoeing. So we became canoe buddies. And I just made him tell me about it all the time. I was like, that's so cool. Like, you paddled in Minnesota, tell me more. And one day, and I think it got to the point where he was kind of annoyed with me. It was like, stop asking me about it. Like, you could just go and do it yourself. And I was like, that's crazy. I would never do something like that. Like, moving across the country to do something I've never done in a place where I don't know anyone, that's crazy. 2 weeks later, I was in Minnesota. So my first experience up here was guiding at the Boy Scout base, and I loved it. It was just great. And I met so many cool people, and I was still in school when that started. So after I finished that first summer, I went back to school and I thought, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm going to finish my degree because I'm so close, but also I just want to go play outside all the time. So what can I do to make that happen really fast? And I did it. So after that, my second season at the Scout base, I worked the program that partnered with the Forest Service and did trail work with kids. And I loved that even more because suddenly you hate portaging a lot less when you can recognize the work that was put into it to make it walkable. And just fostering that connection with the kids in the forest was really cool. And, kids don't like portaging either. So it's cool to be like, oh, but like, think of this work you're doing. And like, now you can recognize like, what's a good portage, what's a bad portage, which one needs a little more love and drainage. And just fostering that connection with the youth and the environment was really cool. And I was like, oh, I like trail work. I like rolling around in dirt all the time. How can I do this all the time? So one day I looked at my water bottle and had this sticker that I acquired at some time in life for Appalachian Conservation Corps. And I was like, well, let me see what they're all about. Looked up their website, saw they had a chainsaw crew. I was like, ooh, chainsaws? That's scary. I'm going to apply. So I showed up, they hired me, I went to go do fall. And the first day I picked up a chainsaw. I'd also come from spending the summer in the wilderness where it's quiet and there are birds, no cars, just no noise, period. And I went straight from that into chainsaw training where suddenly it's very loud with a lot of people and a lot of noise. And I was like, oh, actually, I can't do this. I need to quit immediately. And luckily, my boss, the person I told that to, was like, okay, like just take a step back, try. And if you hate it in a week, like we can put you on a normal trail crew or you can quit. And that's cool too. And I'm really glad she did that for me because I ended up loving it so much. I did it for 3 years. So somewhere in between there, I lived in New Mexico. And I feel like that was a really pivotal point in my life. because I lived in a town called Sacramento in a place called Potato Canyon, where the town's population was less than 20. There was only internet in our office, which was like a 30-second walk from the cabin. It was myself and 3 other people. So it was really just very isolating. There's no cell service there either. So I was like, oh, well, I have nothing except my yoga mat and my books and a journal. So it just really helped me develop and secure habits that I kind of had, kind of didn't. And suddenly I had nothing except what was in front of me every day. And it just made me really grateful for these habits and practices that shaped my life. That's really another point when my yoga relationship began to change. And the closest gas station was 45 minutes away. The closest grocery store was an hour and a half away, which also happened to be near White Sands National Park. So every time we needed groceries, it's like, well, why don't we just go to the park? Might as well, you know, it's right here. And I remember standing on top of a sand dune during sunset and just like looking around, and the entire 360 panoramic view was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen in my life. And it showed me that, like, yes, even though I love the Boundary Waters more than anything, like, there are other places that can captivate my heart like that too. So it was good to know, like, I have this place that feels like home for me, but I can feel these feelings other places too. So eventually I worked for Outward Bound when I lived up here, and working there, not correlated to my job exactly, but I ended up really hurting my knee. And that has been a huge pivotal point in my journey, which something I thought was no big deal has ended up completely changing the structure of my life. So through that, it kind of forced me to take a step back. And turns out trail work as an alternative to guiding was not exactly the step my body was hoping for, but I did it anyways. And just trail work was really meaningful to me. Like, I loved outdoor education and being out there with at-risk youth, but it takes a lot from you. And like, no matter how hard I tried, it's like, I am that version of myself 24 hours a day. And there became a point where I wasn't looking for that anymore. And I turned back to trail work and thought, well, I like trail work because I do my work during the day, and at 5 o'clock, I'm done. And it really helped me realize that I could do outdoorsy outside stuff and still have like a work-life balance and feel like who I am is not just my job, and vice versa. So through trail work, I ended up moving to Colorado, and that's where I moved. That's where I was when I moved here. So that's where I was last, I guess is a better way to say it. And I loved living in Colorado, but that was the first summer in like 4 years that I wasn't here. And I tend to be very dramatic when I have decisions to make, as if one choice is going to completely alter the entire future of my life, which maybe that's true, maybe it's not. But I made the decision to move to Colorado instead of coming back to Minnesota. And Colorado is beautiful. Like, I had an incredible job with an incredible team, and I loved my life. My walk to work every day was insane. And I remember working with a Conservation Corps kid who grew up in Minnesota, and we were just talking about the prettiest places we've ever been. And I was like, I don't know, like, this is cool, but like, I think I like Minnesota more. And she was just like, girl, and pointed out the mountains, because I was like, oh, but water. And she was like, that's a lake. This one has mountains too. And everyone thought I was crazy, but that's when I knew, like, if I'm somewhere I'm really happy and I love my life and it's beautiful, but there's still this like ache in my heart, it's like, oh, but I'm not in Ely. Maybe I should move to Ely. So I did. Yeah, okay. And I will finish with this poem. I recently took Diane Corda's nature writing course at the folk school, and if you haven't done it, you totally should, because it's a great time. Anyways, one of the prompts she gave us was February snow. How I feel about February snow? Well, I feel like it makes it that much harder to leave through my front door, because the city plows leave the biggest banks that make it increasingly more difficult to walk through. What I've said a lot before I moved here, and have intentionally omitted since I moved here, is this: I don't actually like the snow. I know, I must be in the wrong place. But that's not true. I do quite like it here, and the snow is growing on me. I would just like to be able to walk down Central without being shin deep in street muck. Oh, it's snowing again. I'm getting used to it. 10 degrees feels warm. There is a certain magic to it, I suppose. It glistens and it flows. It makes me happy to sit inside all day and read. And it is a grave misfortune when that cannot be the case. Okay, the end. Randy asked what I'm doing now. I work for Save the Boundary Waters full-time as the Northern Outreach Coordinator.
All right, our next presenter, I met at Ely Art Walk. She volunteered and helped us out a couple mornings. Big help. Nope. No, Donna Floyd, also known as, or preferred to be known as DJ. Yes. You brought a friend.
Well, I guess I can start off by, this is what I do now, is make these little guys. This is Kelly, Snow Bunny. Every slope to her is a bunny slope. But I'm originally born and raised in Fort Worth, Texas. I got tired of the heat. Because today the high is 82. On Thursday, the high is going to be almost 90. No, no, thank you. I like wearing jackets and stuff. But in August of 2023, my business partner and I were taking a vacation in Duluth. We were at the aquarium, and one of our friends back home messaged us and said, "Hey, you ought to check out this little town called Ely." We looked it up. It's only 2 hours away. We have to drive in Texas, you drive 2 hours to see your friends. Just across the Metroplex. It's all city. Sucks. So we went, yeah, we got nothing going for the afternoon. We'll go up here. And about 5 minutes out of town, all of a sudden I turned to them and I went, "I'm home." And I started to cry. And when we went back to Texas, I cried all the way because I was homesick. We came up here May of 2024 to house hunt. Didn't find anything. Went back to Texas, really, really depressed. They ended up getting shingles. So if you hadn't got your shots, please get them. It's worth it to not get shingles. So they're going, we're sitting here. I can't do much except look at the computer because it was on, they're left-handed. It was on their left arm and hand. So they pulled up the realtor site. Went, "Hey, we didn't see this one or this one." So we made a list of 3 houses, got virtual tours, and bought the first one we looked at. And knock on wood, so far, we have a dry basement. But I retired from a financial firm in 2022 to start making these. They did pretty good in Texas, so we said, "Hey, let's try it. Who knows? We can make a business out of it till we figure out what else we're going to do." We've got ideas for other things now. We'll see. But we moved up here in August permanently. We got here we left Texas on the 5th, got here on the 6th, slept on the 7th. And that weekend, we took our first class at the folk school. We've become part of the Thursday Makers Morning. In fact, we did that when we were here in May because we were making stuff. Might as well go make it up there, meet people. People now think we've been here 2 or 3 years. But we volunteer at the folk school as well. It's so much fun, and both of us are actually scheduled to teach classes in June. So
What are you teaching?
I will be teaching a class on making cards from vellum paper and tissue paper and individual. And We're also going to be team teaching a class on creativity for the non-creative. If you think you're not creative, I beg to differ. And like for these things, we've got a show coming up, not this coming weekend, but the next weekend in Minneapolis. And we'll probably have them out at the farmer's market and any other thing, because we can't stop making things, even though we're already scheduled to make stuff. We're also part of the Quilt Guild because we quilt, we sew, we random whatever else we come up with. We'll give it a try. Because you never know what's going to be your thing. And that's me.
All right, next up is a woman I stalked and tracked down on Facebook. I didn't know her from Adam. I find a lot of names on Facebook and sometimes they're tough to track. It's like detective work. Anyway, Kate Tovson.
Okay. Like Abby, I had never been to one of these, and so I made a PowerPoint, which is my understanding is sometimes people do, and sometimes they don't.
We always love
Okay. Well, yes, thank you for bearing with me. I heard 6 to 8 minutes and I was like, that's a long time to go without notes, but everyone else did it. So good job, everyone else. I think this advances things, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
it Should. Got it backwards.
Oh.
Yeah. It'll go. One moment. It's just so close, you guys.
I could also just try without this. Okay,
There you go.
beautiful.
So that's
Thank you.
forward and that's backward.
Thanks, Casey. Okay, so I'm Kate Tufson. My husband is not here. He's working on our house right now, but his name's Jared. We have 2 little ones, Charlotte and Lily. We moved here. Well, here's our full timeline. If you can't read that, don't worry. I'm gonna go through the whole thing. But here is how we came to be Elyites or transplants to Ely. Back in the fall of 2011, I led a canoe trip here and I had never even sat in a canoe. I had no business, but it was incoming freshman to my school, College of St. Benedict. And I happened to be paired with a woman named, or a young woman, a fellow student named Molly Roski, who happens to also live here now. And she teaches the canoe course at VCC. So she was more than capable. So they paired me with her for obvious reasons. But I fell in love with canoeing and the Boundary Waters and Ely in that moment. And then a couple years later, my husband does his first trip up here, also to the Boundary Waters. He was doing a hunting trip, also fell in love. And so we both continue living our separate lives, waiting to be brought together and share our love for Boundary Waters and Ely. In June 7, 2018, whatever month that is, July 2018, Jared and Kate matched. So for those of you who are not familiar, we met on Bumble, which is a dating app. You have a very limited amount of real estate to convey who you are and make that first impression before they swipe you away forever or swipe yes on you. You match. So we were both very intentional about putting it out there that we were both DIY enthusiasts and outdoor enthusiasts. We were both impressed with each other's profiles. We matched, we hit it off. And then about a year later, not even an engagement. Definitely weren't married. And I found the one on Zillow. I sent it to him and was like, do you want to buy this with me? And he was like, hell yes, let's do it. So we came up, saw it, loved it, put in a bid. It had been on the market for like more than a year. It was a very niche property, we'll say. And so it needed a lot of work, which is just our type of property. And we go through the whole process and then, we'd already put in our bid. They'd already like I don't know all of the real estate timeline stuff, but they basically had accepted our offer. And then they said, we have another buyer. Would you be willing to go up $5,000? And we were like, no, we're calling your bluff. And then they said, okay, we're gonna go with the other buyer. So we lost out on that property. In that time period, I had like gone full hog in on Ely and was like doing my due diligence. I called every person, anyone I knew who knew someone in Ely, I was in touch with, including Lacey. So we had a phone call. I had phone calls with many people who lived here. What is it like to raise kids here? What is it like if you're coming in as an outsider? What is it, what's the childcare situation, which then was not much. And so I was like all in on Ely. So we missed that opportunity, and we spent the next 2 years dreaming and scheming how to get back here. In that same time period, we had our first child, Charlotte. And then about 2 years later, we find the real one, which is the house that we live in now. Again, same thing, very niche property. They'd been on the market for a long time. You'll see it in the next slide. But we fell in love. Like we saw it and we were like, we'd seen it for a couple times because it had been on the market for maybe a year. But one night I just like could not get it out of my head. And I had put together, was looking at Pinterest boards on how to rehab such a house. And so yeah, we came up, looked at the house, put an offer, got it. And then began that last little like bracket, which is Jared undertakes massive home renovation while the girls live in the city. So we have our second child. And we're mostly living apart at this point. So he's up here living and rehabbing our house, which is still nowhere close to being done, by the way. And then last summer, we all moved to Ely because we listed our house, wanted to make sure that it was on the market before the school year. It sold right away. And so we were forced, I guess, it's not a kind way to put it, because we were very excited to move up here together, but the house was nowhere near ready. But we were forced to move up here in the summer, which was a great time to move up here. So this is the property that caught our eye. It's close. Well, that is Moose Lake. And then this little clearing down here is where the home is. And this is the home. So it was billed as a 3-season cabin. And it's that's a generous way to put it. It was a 1970s trailer sold as is, but what we did not realize is we were buying all of this history too. So this is, if anyone is familiar with Moose Lake area history, Hibbard's Lodge, Knife Lake Pete, if anyone knows anything about these things I'm saying, please do reach out, because we would love to learn more about the history of this place that we are living. But we bought this trailer from a man named Rotten Cotton, as named by Dorothy Moulter. And before that, it was the site for Knife Lake Pete's trailer. And so it's just a fun, I mean, the scenery can't be beat, and it's been an adventure living in what is essentially a mobile home. We've totally gutted it, but it's still not insulated underneath. And so, as you can imagine, we had some frozen pipes this winter. I was just so glad when that massive power outage happened that it was a townwide thing and not some sort of electrical malfunction on my husband's part. But the whole winter has been full of like, oh, that's fun to deal with today. So probably the most fun was my youngest. She's a bloody nose kid. We've learned. So she gets bloody noses when it's really dry. So when it's really cold, because the heat turned up really high. And so that was a morning. She woke up covered in blood. We'd never seen it before. So we were like, what happened that she is covered in blood? And we had no hot water to wash her off. So she's screaming in the tub as we're like washing her with cold water. Anyway, I did not plan to mention that. So here's just a little more about us. I'm Kate, knitting, hiking, working, advocacy, home decor. So I am going on 8 years of running my media consulting business. My bread and butter is like public media clients. So yes, and then I also have an online community for working moms called the Society Working Moms, which is like my passion project. And then I'm actually from Colorado, so similar to Gillian, people think I'm crazy when I'm like, Minnesota's the place to be. They're like, but Colorado, like when I moved here for college, people were like, why would you move from Colorado? I'm like, because it's better here. I don't know. Like I love Minnesota so much. Jared is from Minnesota. He'd probably move to Colorado in a heartbeat. He's very much a mountain man, but he loves it here too. He's into hunting, fishing, anything outdoors, cooking, thankfully, history and home renovation, thankfully also, because that's his life right now. So that's it.
All right, I am excited to say we have a bonus speaker today. Our friend Renee is going to come up and introduce himself, if he's still willing. All right, give Renee a round of applause. Also, Kate, love the PowerPoint.
Thank you.
Bonus points. Please tell us about yourself.
All righty. My name is Renee Arguijo. I am a semi-retired hairstylist. So if anybody knows anyone who works at Roots, please don't tell them I'm here. I'm slowly working my way into all of that. Little bit about me. I am the youngest of 5. My dad was military, so we were born all over. I was actually born in Michigan. But know nothing about it because at the age of 1, he moved us all the way down to San Antonio. And I grew up, I consider San Antonio home. Went to college north of Dallas for 4 years, small little podunk town. Afterwards, I spent a year in Austin and I lost a bet, so I had to move to Houston. And I lived in Houston for over 30 years there before coming up here. I met my wife in Houston, my beautiful wife. She's at home right now. She's an attorney and she can work from home. She is from Minnesota. And the reason I met her in Houston, she hated the cold. So as soon as she was done with all the high school stuff, she moved straight down to Texas. And she loved it. She's been there. She'd been there almost as long as I was in Houston. And while we were there, we got married. About a year after we got married, her parents divorced. 40 some odd years together, her parents divorced. And her mom was living by herself and was seeing so many different doctors. They were all over medicating her. And we brought her down to Texas with us. We put her, we took care of her for like about 10 years, got all the medications straightened out, everything like that. But then she was like to the point where she was, I don't want to die in Texas. And I was like, nobody really wants to, but I mean, but she wanted to come back up to Minnesota and hang out with her family for her last few years. And so we're like, all right, well, my wife's like, fine, we'll move to Minnesota so you can die. And found a place in the in St. Paul. Moved to St. Paul in November 2024. So that was my first winter. And this was my experience in driving in snow and shoveling my sidewalk and doing all that stuff. I was so happy. I was like, hey, look, I'm in Minnesota. I'm shoveling my sidewalk. I look across the street and there's some young woman there in shorts. Just and I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna go back inside. I've been put to shame here. So we're there in St. Paul, and I was working at one of the salons there in St. Paul. And my mother-in-law just out of the blue comes up with, I think it's time for me to move into a home. She's having memory issues and she felt that she would be better in a facility. And we're like, but we moved up here so you could stay with us. She's, yeah, but you kids, I love when people call me kids. She said, you kids need to have on your own life there. And we're like, fine. We did some searching. We found her a place that's good with memory units. And then my wife says, well, where do you want to move? Where do you want to live? And I was like, wherever you want to. I'm game. I moved up here. I'm from Texas. By the way, side note, I made a video of something that I sent to a friend and I was watching it and editing it. And that's when I found out I actually do have a Texas accent. I really did not think I did. But I've been up here long enough to hear other people talk to know, yeah, I have an accent. So we started, she said she always wanted to live up north. Started looking all over the place. It was kind of like a splatter gun kind of technique there, or here, there, we're all over the place. And I'm like, you know what? I'm getting tired of driving all over. Can we just concentrate on one area? What one place would you really like to be in? And she said, Ely. So we concentrated, looked at Ely, found a house, put down an offer for it. And they said they found somebody who could pay cash. So they got rid of that. And so we kept looking, found another place. If you are an old timey Elyite, it's Dick Rock's old house. If you're not, it's on Sheridan. Anyway, it's on the busy street there. So of course you got all the traffic going there, and my sister-in-law was like, isn't that kind of bad there with all of that traffic and everything? We're like, you know where we lived in Houston? We were less than a quarter of a mile away from the highway. You wake up in the morning, you go into the kitchen, all you hear is, and then you got the cars there going. There's time they're going to speed race each other, so you hear those going. That's not going to bother us. So everyone always talks about how quiet it is. I'm kind of glad we're on the busy street, the noisy street, because when it's too quiet, that freaks me out. As I said, I'm a semi-retired hairstylist. I initially started out in Houston as a chiropractor, but Texas hates chiropractors. So then I went into teaching, and Texas hates teachers. And so had a friend of mine work with a title company, and I'm like, can I come work with you? She said, yeah, sure, come on in. We had this opening, boring job. Sat there at a computer, drank 6 to 8 cups of coffee a day because it was up to keep me from falling asleep at the computer, and came to the realization that everybody who was in that office was there to look for another job. They needed something to pay their bills while they look for another job. They were even using the company computers to look for other jobs. And I was like, they can trace that, right? So as it turned out, there was a big bunch of layoffs there. I was in the first wave. They called me into the vice president's office there, and I was like, what's going on? And I saw somebody I didn't know, and she said, hi, this is so-and-so from HR. Like, HR? Am I being let go? Great. Can I go right now? Can I go right now? Completely flummoxed them. They're like, we weren't expecting this reaction. This is like, oh, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. This is just to pay bills until I found out what I want to do. And it was after that, is like, recession proof. Hairstyling is a recession proof thing. And then we had COVID to prove that it's not. And that's when I was like, I'm just going to stay with this. And so I stuck with the hairstyling. When my wife pointed out about Ely, how it's a big arts community, I'm like, well, I grew up, my sister and her kids are very art oriented. One of her daughters, in fact, one of my nieces, has her own little shop that she sells a bunch of stuff that she makes, and she'll mail out stuff to people as well too if you join her club there. And so I've always grown up around it. I can draw, I can paint, I can do jewelry, I can make pottery, I can do all the different things there. And my favorite, of course, is doing crochet. But when I came up here, I did not realize that I was going to be a performing artist. I saw in the Facebook page that they were looking for people to come sing with the Ely Community Choir. And I asked my wife, is that okay if I do that? Yeah, sure, go ahead. So I did that. That was a lot of fun. I met some great people, decided to keep singing and stayed with the choir there, with the Presbyterian choir, and still enjoy doing that. While I was there, one of the people there said, you really should try out for Elf. And I'm like, okay. So I haven't done theater since college. And so I went ahead and I did that. And I was like, let's go ahead and apply for that. Ended up doing Elf. So if you saw Elf, you saw me, a couple other people in here. And then they did Matilda. They put out the call for Matilda. They're doing auditions. Matilda, which will be March 28th, 29th, 30th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, April 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th. Just 8 shows, end of March, beginning of April. I have more lines this time, and so I have to work a little harder. But that is going to be going on over here at the theater. I think that's something up here. I notice nobody likes to give addresses or even tell what city something is in. So it's going to be at the market. What market? You know, a market. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm new here. Moved up here in May of last year. So it's just one morning. Okay. So it's just been a great experience coming up here. Like I said, don't tell anyone at Roots that I know how to do hair. Because I really kind of like the semi-retirement thing. I'm working up to getting that way again. But if you're able to come down to see the play, we got that going on. And I heard some other people say that they're interested in doing Sister Act. Sister Act auditions are going to be, I believe, next weekend. They're going to be doing the auditions on Saturday. So keep your eyes out for that if you're interested in doing it. And thank you so much. This has been an incredible experience so far in my life.
I love these mini stories. Okay, we're gonna hear from Bill Taft and Ellen Cashman about owl eruption, nature meets art. Or maybe just Bill, yeah, you're both coming up, right? We have one last mini presentation, but I want to thank our new Elyites. I find this just so heartwarming to hear your stories and your sense of home in this place. So please join me in welcoming Ellen Cashman and Bill Taft.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing us to be here. I'm Ellen Cashman. I'm an artist, gallery manager, and event planner. I've been in Ely since 1995 because I recognize this as a wonderful community where you could grow old and feel safe and be embraced by the community. I'm here today along with Bill Taft. Bill Taft, you probably know as the Ely Field Naturalist. Bill's a naturalist, a teacher, and an all about the outdoors leader. Bill and I are here today to talk about an event that's happening on the 14th and the 15th, this Friday and Saturday at Art and Soul Gallery. It's called Uniting Artists and Nature. The idea blossomed when photographer Larry Recker told me about the owl eruption, and we discussed that, and he said that he had taken 700 photos in one day of owls during the eruption. I thought, wow, this is important. We should showcase a few of the photos and connect the nature part of the art. And that's when I thought, who knows more about nature than Bill Taft and who knows about owls? And so I asked Bill if he would collaborate with the artists and myself at Art and Soul Gallery and be the person that could provide information about the owls, why the eruption was happening, and where it's happening, and just a lot of information about that. So the presentations that we're going to be doing at the gallery are multifaceted. It'll be a flowing type of situation. We're not meaning that anyone has to come and spend the whole day. You can come at any time during those presentations. And we hope that everyone that comes will engage with us and will create conversations so that we can learn more. Artists are inspired by nature. We're all inspired about what surrounds us, about the wildlife, the trees, the birds, the everything about nature. There's a huge connection between artists and the natural world, the wildlife that surrounds us. My feeling is art is nature and nature is art. And artists and naturalists, as each of us, we spend a lot of time observing. That's how we learn to create, and that's how we learn about our environment and about the things that are in the environment. Facts about the owls and the eruption, that's where Bill's going to come in, and he's going to give you maybe a little information if we have a few moments today, although I know we're running short. So we hope that you will join Larry the photographer, Bill the naturalist, and me the artist for Uniting Artists and Nature from 12 to 2 on the 14th and the 15th at the Art and Soul Gallery in Ely. Thank you. Bill, you want to say something?
I never would have imagined I would have been doing this, but that's what being in Ely is like. I've been here 48 years and had lots of different experiences, but it's the first time I've done something of this sort. And I've thought a lot about
Just
it ever
the
since.
beginning.
It just is, seems like everywhere I go, most of the people in this room that I know that the interest in nature flows throughout this community, and it comes out in all kinds of forms. We've seen poetry, we've seen all sorts of expressions that are ways in which the environment and the culture of this area reflect themselves. And so I considered my career and my time here is not the Birdman of Ely, but actually exploring, just another lifelong experience in exploring areas. And then that ends up in changing you as individuals and evolving. And so I think it's rewarding to be able to meet Larry, for one thing. And I've seen his photos, but there's a story behind everything and every person. And so it's the stories that enrich my life. So look forward to anybody that can come. And the owl eruption or in migration this winter has drawn people from all over the country. And so there's lots of stories related to that, but there's lots of stories behind everything. So if you end up there, we can talk more individually and you can tell your stories and I can answer your questions. And if you connect with me about the Ely Field Naturalists, that's really what they are. It's just people who pay attention, have interest, spend time, share what they see, and help each other appreciate all of that more. So thanks for coming.
Right, well, thank you again to Randy Greiner for coordinating this Meet New Elyites program. Next week, we'll be hearing from a representative of the Southern Utah Wilderness Alliance. See you next week, or see you later today or tomorrow at the festival.